Hello, everybody. Good to see you again. The story I'd like to read today from the Spark Story Bible is called Four Friends, and it's on page 288. Jesus met many sick people when he was traveling from place to place. In one town, Jesus was in someone's house teaching people about God. Other people in the town had heard Jesus was a healer, and they were very excited when they found out he was nearby. 4 of the townspeople had a friend who was paralyzed. The 4 friends knew that if they could just get their sick friend to Jesus, he would be healed. They carried their friend on a stretcher and tried to bring him into the house, but it was so crowded they couldn't get through the front door. "What should we do?" asked one friend. "Maybe we should just give up and go home," answered another sadly. "No, I have an idea," said the third. "Let's take our friend up to the roof. Then we can cut a hole in the roof and lower him in." "Let's try it," said the fourth friend. So they all climbed up on the house and cut a hole in the roof. Using rope, they slowly and gently lowered their friend into the room where Jesus was teaching. All of the people in the room were surprised to see a man being lowered from the roof, except for Jesus. Jesus knew the man was paralyzed. Jesus also knew sin hurts people more than sickness. So Jesus did an unusual thing. Jesus said to the man, "Friend, your sins are forgiven." The people in the room were confused and angry. They thought nobody could forgive sins except God. They didn't know that Jesus was God's son. "Don't be angry," Jesus told them. "I am God's son, and God has given me the power to forgive sins." Again, the people were confused and surprised. They didn't know if Jesus was telling the truth. "I am telling the truth," Jesus said. "I can prove I am God's son." He turned to the paralyzed man and said, "Friend, stand up." The man stood up. He had been healed. Now the people were amazed. The healed man thanked Jesus and carried his stretcher home with his 4 friends. Many people believed that Jesus was God's son, and they praised God that very day. They knew that if they or their friends ever had a need, Jesus would be there to heal them, to forgive their sins, and to love them. Well, the book I'd like to read to you tonight is called Ricky, the Rock That Couldn't Roll. And it's written by Jay Moletsky and illustrated by Aaron Wozniak. Over the lake and out past the bay was a green grassy hill where the rocks came to play. They would race to the top to take in the view, then roll their way down the way rocks love to do. There were Kip, Pip, and Chester, and Marvin the Boulder. Ignatius played too, though he was much older. And a group called the Pebbles never ever sat still, zigzagging their way up and over the hill. Kai was a meteorite and not from this planet, and Maya was lava, but taken for granite. Stu was the smart one, Parker the clown, and grumpy old Ebert rolled round with a frown. Gabby was sassy, Lisi had flair, Emma was giggly, and Hud had black hair. But the one trait that seemed to be shared by them all was that every rock there was shaped like a ball. and because they were round, they could easily roll through the grass, past the lake, up and over the knoll. Except for poor Ricky, who quietly sat. You see, Rick couldn't roll because one side was flat. His friends didn't get it. Come roll, they would chant. So Ricky tried, but replied, I'm sorry, I can't. But the rocks were determined. They were sure they could solve Ricky's flat-sided problem and help him revolve. So Marvin the boulder, with his impressive physique, carried Rick all the way to the hill's grassy peak. Then he pushed him down, yelling, keep rolling, kid. But Ricky didn't roll. He just kind of slid. Well, the rocks weren't done, not by a mile. Surely this next try would get Rick to smile. They stuck rubber balls all over Rick, using big gobs of glue to get them to stick. They were proud of themselves. This will work, they announced. But Ricky still couldn't roll. Now he just sort of bounced. Well, they pushed and they pulled, trying every which way to get Rick to roll. But by the end of the day, nothing had worked, just like Rick expected, and he ended up feeling depressed and dejected. It's no use, Ricky sighed. There just isn't a way. So I'll sit off to the side and watch you all play. Oh, he's sad. But his friends wouldn't quit. We're here for you, brother, and we'll get you to roll one way or another. So they pondered and thought, each straining his brain, till they looked up and saw it was starting to rain. And that's when it hit the smart stone named Stu. Eureka, he shouted, I know just what to do. He explained to them how they would get Rick to tumble. My plan is pure genius. Stu wasn't too humble. So they carried our hero down the road about a mile to the lake where they gathered up mud they could pile on the flat side of Rick, creating a mound that they shaped smooth and sculpted until it was round. Then after the rain, with the sun in the sky, they left him to bake till the mud was all dry. They gathered up vines and one colorful feather that they wrapped all round Rick to keep it together. When the last knot was tied and the work was all done, the only step left was for Rick to have fun. They stood back and watched, feeling nervous and tense, as Rick breathed in deep with increasing suspense. He moved slowly at first, testing out his new mold, and then, for the first time, Ricky the Rock rolled. So Bria the ladybug, who'd been there from the start, felt a surge of pure joy swell up in her heart. She thought as she watched her friends play on the hill that there's always a way if there's also a will. And she said to herself as Ricky rolled down the slope, when you're surrounded by love, you always have hope. And that's the story of Ricky the rock that couldn't roll. You know, just as the friends brought their paralyzed friend to see Jesus, they worked together to figure out the problem, but they knew they had to bring it to Jesus. And Ricky's friends worked out how they could help him too. So I hope in your day and that you'll be working with your family and friends, and when you can be together again, and know that every one of you is important and valued, and that working together is the best way to go.